When I heard about what happened to your father, I just had to come. Who would have thought there'd be a Sith hidden among the royal family? Why is the princess carrying a bow? Surely you don't plan to fight.
Tsubaki, why did you come?
Masago is a Sith Lord. It's impossible to defeat her alone. Allow me to go with you.
Back once again. Greetings, Bucketheads. Mevar Tigar. Welcome to the 101st episode, a dark side seducing episode of Mandovision. Nargai Tom, and thank you so much for checking out this small, independent Star Wars podcast that, yes, indeed, is a day late. I'm very, very sorry, but thank you for your kindness and your consideration in allowing me to be a little bit tardy with this particular episode. But we're here now. We're going to crush it. We're going to have a good time. We're going to have fun because we're talking about Star Wars. And I cannot wait to do that with all of you wonderful, wonderful people. Remember, the best way to reach out to us is of course, via social media at Mando_Vision, Twitter and Instagram. Email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and share this show with all the other Mandalorians in your covert, because your covert is full of awesome Mandalorians that need to hear this episode. If possible or so inclined, remember the 5-star reviews are the lifeblood of a podcast. They really help get the word out about us, help us stand out, not get lost in the cosmic shuffle, and fight against that algorithm. We love to fight the algorithm. So thank you in advance for doing that. Yes, we are back. We are here to close out our review of every single installment of Star Wars Visions. Whether this turns out to be a Season 1 style show or we get a Season 2 of Visions down the road. That has not yet, at least to my knowledge, not been announced. And I think if you've been listening to this podcast, you kind of know how I feel about the prior 8 episodes. Even the ones that I wasn't the world's biggest fan of. There was enough to enjoy there that I'd like to see more. There are certain episodes that I'd like to see more of those characters, further adventures with them. So let's see how this shakes out. Again, we're sort of putting a lot of our eggs in the basket that will be the next big Disney shareholders meeting, which I believe is still a couple weeks out. But we expect a lot of announcements, just like last year. So get ready. There'll be a special Bantha Tracks episode of the show that's ready to go as soon as all those shows and movies and whatnots are announced. Maybe we'll get some clarity on what Taika Waititi's planning for his Star Wars saga series movie. I don't even know if it's a standalone or if it's duology. I have no idea. So yeah, there's a lot to look forward to. We'll probably also be getting the trailer, the teaser trailer, whatever it's going to be for the Book of Boba Fett, which we're going to dive into on this podcast because we're basically counting down the days to the Book of Boba Fett. We cannot wait for that show to get here, to arrive, and to just cap off the holiday season because it's coming out at the end. Remember, at the end of December, I'm gonna need some joy in my life. I don't know what it is about me. I love the holidays. I love from Halloween all the way through Christmas. I'm just like on cloud 9. I'm living my best life, and I'm just so stoked and so happy more often than not. This year's gonna be very, very different. I have some external factors that are sort of trying to dampen my holiday spirit at the moment. But even without those external forces, I tend to get real low. Like the day after Christmas, I'm like, oh man, it's over. It's over. I mean, I guess I can, watch all the Star Wars things I got or read all the Star Wars things I got, but man, it's over. But now, this year, it's over, but that just means the Book of Boba Fett will be here to save me and to lift me up and put him on his Beskar-plated shoulders. And I cannot wait to be carried away by Boba Fett. We're all going to be carried away by Boba Fett, and it's going to be delicious. I cannot wait. All right, I've talked enough about that. Again, we are here for the final installment of Star Wars Visions, number 9. This is Akakiri, the 13-minute long, 6th highest rated episode, which means it's definitely towards the bottom as far as the IMDb rating goes. This one's from Science Saru Studios, and it's directed by I'm going to get this name wrong. It's Young Choi, and Yuichiro Kido is the writer on this one. And it's let me just give you the plot. All right, a Jedi returns to his forbidden love to help her defend her kingdom from a Sith-like shogun. And our cast for this week's episode, and again, we focus rightly or wrongly on the American cast. We have Henry Golding as Tsubaki, and Henry Golding, just in case he's listening, I'm still mad at him. I'm still mad at you, Henry Golding. Your Snake Eyes movie was a huge letdown, and I'm very sad by it. Very sad. Jamie Chung is Misa. Keone Young is Kamahachi. George Takai himself is Senshu. Lorraine Toussaint is Masiago. Paul Natatucci is the Master. Adam Seitz as Musha and the Villager. And a few other nice people who contributed some backing voices to this one. We're going to get into this. We got a lot to talk about with this episode. I'm just going to say it. This one might be my least favorite, and that might even again, we acknowledge that on the IMDb ratings, the lowest rated episode thus far is still Tatooine Rhapsody, followed by The Twins, and then it goes to Akakiri, and for whatever reason, Akakiri, it doesn't click with me the way I want it to, and I don't know if it's because the anime style is not quite my cup of tea. I don't know. There's something about it. I've watched the episode 4 or 5 times now, trying to kind of like put my finger on what it is that holds it back in my mind. Now again, I am probably on I am just one person. My opinion should not influence others. I'm just sharing my opinion with you all, and by all means, let me know if you disagree and be like, Akakiri was awesome, dum dum. Let me know. Let me know what you think. We're going to talk about it on the other side. But this is definitely a unique episode, regardless of my personal opinion of it, high or low. It's still a very unique episode, and I'm excited to talk to you about it. So we're going to do that right now, but you know what has to happen first? It's that time. Strap on your buckets. Let's go.
He's a Jedi. He helped us 5 years ago when we were attacked by Orochi.
Jedi traveled all the way here by himself? Seems kind of suspicious.
Misa, do they really need to be here?
Excuse me?
From what I can tell, you can't seem to fight.
I see. Jedi judge by appearances, do they? If you must know, we're not strong fighters.
Just a quick note as we start getting into the episode. It is possible you may hear the drip, drip, drip of water behind me. That is because we are in the midst of a epic winter downpour in San Diego. And it was not unexpected. They've been waiting for it all day long, basically. But it's always a pleasant surprise. Though it does seem to happen quite a bit when I'm recording Mando Vision. So I don't know if it's something with this podcast and the weather kind of comes together whenever I am doing a recording for the show, that it seems to rain. So I don't know. Maybe if I did more podcasts, I'd solve the drought in California. Food for thought. But in case you hear a little drip, 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 my apartment is not flooding. It just happens to be raining outside the window. That I cannot control how that sounds, unfortunately. I wish I could block that out, but that is not something in my skill set, unfortunately. So yes, all right, let's get back to Akakiri, the final episode of Star Wars Visions for this season. And this episode opens very interestingly with a very unique musical score for this one. I don't, again, like we talked about in last week's episode, I don't know much about instruments and what they are. You get some kind of wild kind of drumming thing happening there. It's like, I don't know if it's a bongo. I couldn't tell you, but it's something bongo-esque. And so you get that sort of very, very high, fast rhythmic beat going on as we were watching a B-wing crash to the surface of the planet. I did have to wonder, was it those sort of brigands, those raiders, were those the ones that caused Tsubaki's B-wing to crash to the planet's surface, or was there something that happened in orbit, or something that happened on his way to that planet that we're not privy to at this particular moment in time? But that music sets a very interesting tone for this episode, and again, it's an interesting choice. Tsubaki is a very interesting Jedi, at the least. So, we played a little clip right there where he's judging these helpers, Misa's sort of guides, based on their appearance and how, like, judges them as not fighters, which is, again, not a very Jedi thing to do. Again, a Jedi should be the last resort of a Jedi to resort to a physical altercation of any sort. But Tsubaki seems very keyed up for physical confrontation. He's come back to this planet to help Misa, a woman he has a familial attachment to, and again, the plot says his former love. And so, again, we're sort of flipping the script on sort of the classic Jedi story, and we're sort of doing more of a traditional, sort of much more samurai-esque story with the trappings of Star Wars and Jedi knighthood wrapped around it, which I don't think we've seen a lot of different interpretations of that in prior Visions episodes. For some reason, that cloak that they wrapped this episode in doesn't fit quite as well as it does in previous entries. I think the dialogue in this episode is a tad clunky. Tsubaki is not my favorite Jedi Knight, though I do think he is the first Jedi that I can recall that wears a hat. He has I can't tell you exactly. I don't want to. If you watch the show What We Do in the Shadows, there is a very specific hat that Laszlo wears, mostly in season 2, and in an episode in season 2, that Tsubaki's hat reminds me of. If you know the episode in which I'm referring to, you'll get the joke and you'll laugh. But if you don't, well, there you go. There's your reference point if you wanted to go watch that show real quick. But I can't think of another Jedi that I know who's worn a hat like that before. So again, a very interesting look. He has the robes on. He's rather unshaven. He seems to be suffering from some sort of PTSD. During the fight with the brigands, he gets distracted. There's a moment where he's overcome by intense emotion, a memory of something from his past. So that I think that's very interesting. I think that's a very unique take on the character as well. There's something that haunts that character, something that drives that character that we're, sort of unaware of, sort of unfamiliar with. Through the course of the story, we find out more about his role with Misa and helping her father defend the realm, and this new this Sith shogun who has usurped power from her father. Again, very much a samurai story with more Jedi Star Wars trappings around it, as opposed to a Star Wars story with samurai trappings around it. We should also mention in the scene where Tsubaki is fighting against those raiders, those brigands, his lightsaber. Again, we get another very unique take on the lightsaber. It almost feels like, as he unsheathes this, it's like on all the time. It's sort of like the vibe you get from the first time he draws it. I don't think that's accurate, but again, rewatching the episode a couple times, it sort of has like that visual flair of like he's unsheathing a lightsaber, which is again a very unique idea, very interesting thought on the role of the lightsaber in this story. Again, this is he gets saved after his PTSD attack by Princess Misa. This is when we understand their connection, their history with one another. You can't not watch this episode and not draw the comparisons between Tsubaki and Misa, and then Anakin and Padme. Or, by extension, if you wanted to go another route, you could even look at it as Obi-Wan Kenobi and Satine. They're in the Clone War episodes where they're discussing their prior history with one another. And it sounds like Tsubaki made a very Obi-Wan Kenobi-like decision to leave her behind and to go be a Jedi and do Jedi things across the galaxy. But his affection for her brings him back to her as he learns about what's happened to the father, learns about the Sith Lord that has been in disguise, operating within the royal court, and he's come back to fix it. Again, this Subaki character is very much an aggressive Jedi, very much into like the we must fight the Sith at all costs. Again, it feels more like a traditional sort of samurai as opposed to a Jedi with sort of the violence, the sort of willingness to engage in a fight so quickly. Now, again, a Jedi wants to fight a Sith. That's going to happen, and he probably feels a certain amount of betrayal because this royal court was supposed to prop up the king and support the king, right? And then you find out one of them was a Sith later on. Yeah, I guess he's going to be a little upset, but again, he's very emotional for a Jedi, something we don't see a lot of. Well, I mean, in this type of story, you do, and we'll get to that point because I think we know what's going to happen here. I think we all see where this is going to go because we have it echoes Padme and Anakin, it echoes Obi-Wan and Satine. We know that at some point, Princess Misa will be put in a position where Subaki will have to make a choice. He will have to make a decision. And we'll get there. I don't know if I want to jump to it right away because the episode. Maybe the episode's problem for me is the pacing of it. It's a lot of like walkie-talkie stuff, and again, that's not a bad thing. I think the dialogue just kind of clunks. So it's again not my favorite one, but again, still interesting aspects of it to talk about, to explore. It's not bad. It's not terrible. It's just I just feel like it clunks. Maybe that's just to me. There's just some clunkiness to it that I kind of brush up against. I wish it was a bit smoother. I wish it was a bit more fleshed out. And whatever limitations that Science Saru Studios had under it, I wish they had gotten to sort of refine the story a bit more. Again, I have no problem with echoing the things that we know from Star Wars. Again, like you're echoing Anakin and Padme, or you're echoing Obi-Wan and Satine. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And in fact, you make a very interesting decision at the end of the episode. I just wish it was polished more. It's the only word I can think of more. It just seems sort of unrefined. It just sort of seems almost too on the nose, maybe. I don't know. That's what we'll go with for now. Even before Subaki comes back to the planet, Princess Misa, with the help of Kamahachi and Senshu, already has a plan in place to go into the palace, to sneak into the palace with Kamahachi and Senshu's help as her guides, and herself depose of Masiago, the Sith who has usurped the throne, and avenge her father. So Subaki coming to help seems like a good omen, right? But Misa was not going to be stopped or deterred. But I think she believes that hopefully Subaki can wield that lightsaber, be the Jedi warrior that she knows him to be, and sort of bring this to an end in a much faster. You want to have the warrior on your side, right? Like of Subaki's renown, of his acclaim, of his dedication, and again, when you have a personal connection to who is personally invested in what's happening on the planet, it's a very interesting thing. But I like the fact that Misa's a character who was going into action already. Subaki showing up didn't spur her to action, didn't drive her or motivate her to do anything that she wasn't already planning to do. He just kind of comes along for the ride. But again, a Sith Lord is not to be messed with, and there's a lot to, there's a lot to parse out there. We'll talk a little bit more about that. There's some interesting stuff on the journey there about when they have to go across the mountains, but they don't want to. Because it's not the most direct route. So Kamahachi and Shensu accept more money from the princess, kind of showing their character as sort of like, again, they're not mercenaries. They're just kind of like peasants for hire, and they clearly need the cash. So you understand them to a certain extent. Like we talked about in that clip, they admit they're not fighters. They're not there for the combat. They're doing a job. They're there to get paid, and that's sort of the end of the line for them. But again, you got to be careful who you take employment with. Because sometimes in Star Wars these things don't go out. These things don't work out well for the people who we're just bringing these people here. You still pay the price. You still pay the price. You're in league with them. And Masayago does not seem like the kind of person who's going to be forgiving of all that. And in fact, she is not. She is not very. She is very much not that way. Uh, there's a scene where Tsubaki has to go back to find the missing Kamahachi. We get more of Tsubaki's headaches, his past trauma. Again, I think this is a really interesting element to that character. I don't feel like they explore it very fully. It just sort of seems to be something that makes him vulnerable to his emotions, vulnerable perhaps through the persuasion of Masayago and the dark side. And I'm not trying to diminish that, but I think the idea of a Jedi with PTSD is very fascinating, and be something worth exploring more fully, as opposed to this kind of limited format, this limited short story, basically. I mean, again, it's a 13-minute episode. I would have loved to have gotten more out of that unique characteristic of Tsubaki's, that trauma, that sort of pain that he finds himself in at random moments when he needs to be on top of his game. It seems to strike. I'd like to dive into the psychology of that and explore that more fully. And again, I don't. This episode is not my favorite, but if they wanted to do a story or a comic, a manga style comic with Tsubaki and sort of exploring that more fully, I would be 100% in on checking that out, because there's something about that, as we learn more and more about the psychology of warfare and the effects it has on the soldiers themselves. It's why not explore it more fully in Star Wars? It's an interesting idea. I think it deserves some extra attention, some extra care with the sort of story that it's used in. It could be a very, very interesting. Again, if you wanted to use it with the Jedi, cool. You could also use it with Rebel troopers, the clone troopers themselves. We've gotten pieces and tastes of that in the past, but again, a more fully developed exploration of it, in probably in a novel format would probably be the best. But it would be very, very interesting, and I would like to see more of it. Once we get to the palace, though, we also get the flashback to a young Tsubaki and Misa, which helps develop their story, their relationship, their history. But everything moves so quickly in this episode. Maybe that's another reason why I had so many kind of bump up moments with it. Is like, we're on this journey, we're on this quest, we're trying to explore these characters' histories. We have Kamehachi and Senshu, but they're just kind of there. We understand that they're there as paid help, but you sort of want to know more about it. Like, is Masayago oppressing the people of the village now? Is she, killing them, taking rights away? Is she suppressing them somehow? I'd like to know more. I'd like to know a lot more about it. We don't get it, which is unfortunate. We do, once we get to the palace, though, hey, lightsaber fight time, and Tsubaki doing some damage with that lightsaber, and a big fight with Masayago. It's really good. Jedi versus Sith. We get the whole ideology, the whole philosophy in the battle to fight against destiny, and I think that's where this episode is strongest, is in that moment where we finally get the confrontation between the Sith and the Jedi. Now, again, this is a very non-traditional setup. It's much more, feudal Japan with Star Wars wrapped around it as the wrapper. And again, it's not the smoothest fitting tuxedo or evening gown. It doesn't have to be gendered, but it's by and large, you still know what's happening. You know what's going on here. You see the reference points. And again, I love the philosophy. You always want to get into the philosophy of the Jedi and the Sith's point of views and how they oppose each other. And of course, Masayago has a plan, because Sith always have a plan. And it is to allow Tsubaki to believe that he has just killed Misa, who came out disguised as one of the guards at the palace, and he just chopped her down. Just chopped her down. So then a choice is offered. Masayago can save her life, can bring her back with the powers of the dark side, because the dark side is the pathway to abilities that many would consider to be unnatural. And Tsubaki wants in on that. He's like, you know what? If you're saving Misa, you just got yourself a new apprentice. I will go to the dark side if you bring her back to life. And you understand his choice. You understand his decision. But in the same way that you understand Anakin's decision in Episode 3, in The Revenge of the Sith, It is that choice to save another person at the expense of your own soul. Anakin, unfortunately, as we know, does not save Padme. It is merely a sort of lure that Palpatine uses to bring Anakin over. Masiago, on the other hand, knows how to do these things and revives Misa, and that brings great joy to Tsubaki, even though he now knows it has cost him his soul, as he goes willingly to become the apprentice of Masiago and the Sith. And that is how this episode ends. It is it is an episode with a bummer of an ending, but an ending that we understand, again, that echoes Star Wars in a very, very nice way. So it's a solid episode. It's enjoyable. Like I said, it may have been my least favorite. It's a bit of a toss-up. On any given day, I could tell you that Tatooine Rhapsody is my least favorite. But Tatooine Rhapsody at least has a uniqueness for it. Whether you're a fan of it or not is up to each individual. But there's a uniqueness to that story that we hadn't really seen out of Star Wars before. So there's something to me about that provides it with a little extra charm. Akakiri is very much familiar things. Is very much a familiar Star Wars story. And I like the end. But there's just some clunks in here. Like, it's not the smooth story as I wish it would be. I wish it was a bit more polished. I wish the dialogue were a bit better. I think the voice cast is fine. I think Henry Golding provides the voice of a complicated Jedi who we just don't know enough about to really feel for his decision. You know, we get glimpses of his relationship with Misa in the past and why he feels the way he does about her. And of course, as a Jedi, he wants to protect life. So, you know, and again, his personal attachment is what allows him to say, well, we're going to defy the natural order of life by having the Sith Lord bring Misa back to life. What would be interesting, too, is if it were to more fully explore the fact that, you know, Misa was brought back to life by a wielder of dark side powers. And is she now corrupted in some way? Is she now influenced or just even motivated by the dark side, darker impulses that always existed within her? Is she changed from this experience of dying and being brought back by the dark side? And we don't get those answers, unfortunately. I don't even know. It doesn't seem that way. There don't seem to be any ill effects to Misa being brought back by a Sith Lord. But again, I still find it to be a story full of potential that it doesn't really live up to, and that it doesn't even tantalizingly tease for us with another installment. You know, if they were to continue the story, maybe I would feel differently because maybe I would get more explanation, more answers, more development in these characters to sort of understand their plights more. I don't want to... Half-baked sounds very insulting, and I don't want to be insulting to the episode because again, they tried some ambitious things. I just don't think it lands on all of its feet. And it's not for lack of trying. Like I said, there's interesting components to this. There's interesting elements to this episode, but I feel like Akakiri doesn't bring it all together in the end, and we're left with far more questions than we are answers. And I would have liked to have a better understanding of Tsubaki before he makes this decision, and we don't get it, and that is unfortunate. And I would have liked... I think the Misa character is very interesting, but we don't get much more out of her either. This episode's characters are very surface, very surface. We get an allusion to depth. We get an allusion to complex character histories, but they're not shown. They're not developed. They're not explored in the way I would have liked them to be. And to me, that is what holds Akakiri back just a bit. You know, now the more I think about it, I might actually still like this episode more than the Twins. But the Twins is another episode that's full of possibilities and not a lot of abilities that seem to go unanswered. So, and plus, as we mentioned before, they talk in space, which is something I'm not a fan of in animation. So maybe Akakiri does rank a little bit higher in my ratings. Maybe that third position that it holds on IMDb is actually where it holds for me as well, the more I think about it. I just wish this was fleshed out more. I wish it was developed more. And I think that's all I'm going to say about this one. Because that's the end of Visions. We did it. We made it all the way to the end. 9 episodes for Visions and 9 installments. And I think we... again, what I told you when we first started this is I decided to break this down one by one because these creators and these voice casts, I felt like they deserve to have a little bit more of a well-rounded exploration of their contributions to this Visions series. and I think we did a pretty good job of that. I hope you all agree. I hope I brought up some interesting talking points, maybe things you hadn't considered, or maybe things you're like, I did think about that. Aha! So, yeah, Visions is done for now. Maybe we'll see more about that, and we got we got something new coming up on Friday. And if you're familiar with the date on the calendar, you might have an idea of what's coming on Friday. But I'm really looking forward to it. It's gonna be a fun one. I really am getting to enjoy watching some of these lighter Star Wars fairs, and then talking about it with you all on the podcast. Because once we get to December and Book of Boba Fett's right around the corner, stuff's gonna get serious on this show. It's gonna get serious real fast. So I want to thank you all so much for listening to the podcast this week. It has been an absolute blast as always. I do apologize once again for the delay. It was not my intention to have to miss another Monday, but it is the situation in which I found myself in. So thank you so much for being patient and supportive. I truly, truly appreciate it. One thing before we go, I wanted, I talked about it in episode 100 that I had received a very, very incredible voice message from an awesome, amazing listener to the show. He's at Rural Farm Boy on Twitter, and just a great person. Again, an amazing supporter of the entire Star Wars podcasting community. He left me a really nice voice recording, and I wanted to include it. I didn't get his permission in time to record it for episode 100 before the episode was locked. So I'm going to include it right now. I want you all to check it out, and just as my way of saying thank you to him for all the support. I just want to include it because it meant so much to me to hear that voicemail, and I wanted to share with everybody, let you all know what an awesome person this person is. And if you have a Star Wars podcast, make sure Rural Farm Boy is listening to it, because he is the Star Wars fan you want listening to your show. That is a fact that is indisputable. So let me go ahead and put that on. I'll catch up with you on the other side in just a minute.
Howdy, Tom. You know me in the Twitterverse, where I do my damnedest to share your show around as often as I can. This here is Rural Farm Boy. And I want to send you this here message to congratulate you on your 100th episode. And I'm fairly certain, my friend, I've been along with your show for all 100 episodes. And if I do recall, I've shared each and every one of them. I believe you've been doing mostly 2 a week. Up until when Bad Batch, you even made it and stretched. If it weren't 2, it was 3 a week. But I'm very grateful that you choose to do what you do, because I can't do what I do, just like everybody else that I share in my playlist. If you don't sit down behind a microphone because you choose to do that, and then you share it with us, I can't do what I do. And it's what brought me into that Twitterverse, is folks and friends just like you that I've listened to, and I've been a listener of podcasts for going on what'll be 11 years. And it's most recently listening through days and weeks and months. These folks that I listen to and friends, I call them friends because I get to know who you are. You sit and talk to me once, twice a week, and I get to know you for the folks that you are, and call you my friends. That I made the step to go into Twitterverse and say, I've been listening to you for this long. I thank you for what you're doing. And I do what I do is not for me. It's because I'm listening to all these great folks talking about smart Star Wars stuff. Everybody else, give this a listen too. Don't leave it to just me. And then let them know that you're listening just like I do. That's why I do what I do. So thank you, Tom. And here's to another 100. Because I've got room for each and every one in my playlist. So till episode 101. See you on the radio, Tom. May the force be with you.
Thank you, Rural Farm Boy, for that. So incredibly touching. I still, every time I hear it, I'm moved. I get moved every time. And I love it. Thank you. You are a wonderful, wonderful person. And I'm so glad you listen to this show and support this show. It means the world to me. We are going to wrap it up, though, for this 101st episode of Mando Vision. Remember, my name is Tom, Nargai Tom, and I thank you once again for checking out the Small Independent Star Wars podcast. Remember, the best way to find us, it's on social media at Mando_Vision, Twitter and Instagram. Email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Once again, make sure to like, subscribe, follow, share this show with all the other Mandalorians in your covert. If you do if you're listening on Apple Podcast, 5-star reviews are insanely kind and generous, and they help small shows like us stand out, not get lost in the shuffle. And again, they mean the world to me. So thank you in advance for you taking the time to do that. All right, we're going to get out of here. We're going to wrap this puppy up. We're going to be back on Friday, I promise, with a special episode that I think everyone will enjoy as we head into a big fun weekend. Hopefully it's fun where you're living. All right, let's wrap it up. You know how we get it. We know. Yeah. Ooh. Got a little excited there. You know how this podcast ends. It only ends one way. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
I would like to see the baby.